Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Circular Economy session. In the coming 75 minutes, we will give you insights in the business opportunities within the circular economy domain in Kenya, South Africa, and Nigeria, and some of Ghana as well. We will be discussing overall trends, regulatory developments, best practices, challenges, and we will also look at similarities and differences between the markets. I'm your moderator, and I am assigned to lead the discussion in such a way that all your questions will be answered. But I'm sure I will miss a few, if not a lot. Therefore, we have the option that you can ask questions or make comments in the chat. Nena van Beuningen of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will assist me in that. And if you have questions that are not related to the discussions, please save them to the end of the session. So we will start with the introduction of the speakers. And then we will have, after the panel session, we will have 3 company pitches. And we will close with the Q&A session and with some final remarks. So the speakers in the session are Karin Boomsma, Director Sustainable Inclusive Business, Kenia. Karen, please introduce yourself in 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here. I'm from Kenya, and Kenya is to give and provide insights from the Kenyan perspective and the journey into a circular economy. So I run the Sustainable and Inclusive Business Center, which is hosted by Kenya Private Sector Alliance, sort of VNO-NCW, and is also supported by the Dutch Embassy. So that's my brief introduction. There's a lot happening on circular economy in Kenya at the moment, so I'm excited to share today a bit more.
Okay, Karen, thank you very much. And then we quickly move on to Kemi Ayakaya, a program manager in Nigeria for the African Circular Economy Network. Kemi, please introduce yourself.
Okay, good morning, the panel members, and good morning, Herman, and all listeners. So Herman has pronounced my name in the best possible way he can. The name is Kemi Ajakaye. I am from the southwest of Nigeria. I am a chartered environmentalist with the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment in the UK. I see to the day-to-day activities of a company called Impact Nigeria Limited, which is an environmental sustainability consultancy company. Mostly my work is in the area of consulting for the power sector and the metal industry in Nigeria. I'm excited to be here, and I think it's an honor and privilege to, discuss circular economy in the Nigerian sectors. With everyone in the Dutch, in the Netherlands. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Kemi. Yeah. Next, I'd like to introduce Chris White, member of the African Circular Economy Network. Please introduce yourself, Chris.
Thank you, Herman, and good morning to everybody. Basically, I've been involved in the sort of waste circular economy side of things for about 20 years. I think we've been through just about every buzzword. So circular economy it is at the moment. I've now been told after 20 years that I'm supposedly an expert in this field. Again, my focus really is transitioning to a circular economy where waste is a resource, particularly looking at innovation and applications. I am a director and on the executive committee of the African Circular Economy Network. We are a membership-based organization representing over 100 country members in 31 African countries. We have also just launched and developed the ASIN Foundation, which is hosted in the Netherlands, in terms of looking at trying to develop the opportunities on the circular economy in the African continent. And I'm looking forward to today's chat. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Then I would like to introduce Nena van Beuningen. Please, Nena, introduce yourself.
Yes, hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Nena van Beuningen. I'm not one of the panel speakers, but I will be helping Herman today with moderating the chat. I work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at the Trade Department, where we set policies to support Dutch companies doing business abroad. So if you have any questions in the chat, I will respond to you. And I know we also have some people from the embassies in the chat who can also probably respond to your questions if necessary.
Okay. Nina, thank you very much. Well, I'm Herman Huisman. I'm your moderator. And I'm a private consultant nowadays. After 42 years of civil servant, being civil servant, and 30 years of that in the waste management area. So I'm still quite active in quite a lot of projects, amongst others Ghana and Malaysia. But we quickly move on to the panel session. And first I would like to ask all of you a very general question. What is the relationship between waste management and circular economy? In the EU, waste management in general is well established with high recycling rates and low landfill levels. On top of that, circular economy was introduced with new elements like extension of the 3 R's to the concept of the 10 R's, new business models, sustainable purchasing, design for recycling, extended producer responsibility, substitution of scarce materials by renewable ones, better recycling, and obligation to use recycled materials in new products. Is this concept in Africa the same? Chris, I would first like to ask you.
Yes and no. I think we've got to look at understanding the fact that we need to embrace circular economy as a far larger concept than that dealing with waste. I often give international presentations talking about the fact that recycling is irrelevant. And it largely is in terms of if we don't look at it with regards to the entire value chain. So when I talk about waste and waste resources, we talk about the opportunities and the outcomes and the impacts, particularly in terms of transitioning to a circular economy where waste is a resource. So the outcomes and the impacts are in terms of a multi-sectoral approach where we look at infrastructure, manufacturing, agriculture, tourism, health, education, nutrition. So we want to try and make sure that we broaden the concept of circular economy and embrace it with regards to the many applications that it has for Africa and across the globe. The difference between where we are from the European standards and the South African standards, I think there's general alignment in terms of the overall thought. Again, understanding that from a developing economies, we need to look at it with multiple different prospects, specifically understanding the inclusion of the informal sector into the circular economy. So that would be the prime difference with regards to Africa and Europe.
Okay. Karen, can you add something to this?
Yeah, so for us, yeah, I think in Kenya, we hope to do the same and look at all the aspects and not only waste, but for us at the moment, the discussion around circular economy has started completely at the end of the cycle. So where it's already waste and how can we improve that? It is very much related, but we see already a shift in going back a couple of steps that before it turns out to be waste, what can we do? So in order to prevent it becoming waste or to recover materials and actually not to claim it waste, but just new materials. So we see that with the EPR, the extended producer responsibility being in place, where collection and recycling is a requirement, or actually reuse and recycling, but at least it needs to be coming back, materials that you have been using. And that's the producer, user, and manufacturer's responsibility. So we do see that change as well as in other legislations at the moment, where more and more full circular economy principles will be implemented. So it allows us to start a conversation on redesigning if we want to actually discuss what recycling means and what do we want with it and how much it's going to solve. So we are slowly exploring and setting up a proper infrastructure for waste management. And because that's quite, there is nothing, it also offers us the opportunity to design that in the right way and maybe just eliminate specific use of materials that we can't really recover or reuse before we actually, so we change actually the design and we change actually our products around it. So that's where we are in Kenya at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And Kemi, please add something to this from your Nigerian perspective.
Okay, I believe traditionally that Nigeria is a circular economy practicing country, you know, from time. It's just that, however, it is not structured and it's a bit undeveloped. And really, when it comes to, I mean, it's established amongst peers that waste management is an element of circular economy. And so, I mean, in defining circular economy, I think widely it varies depending on the problem being addressed. So you find among stakeholders, they look, I mean, through the lens with which the problem they are solving. Waste management is a major issue in Nigeria. It's waste management, waste administration. It has severe consequences. Of course, it's led to several other environmental issues. So in Nigeria, we understand that waste management needs to be tackled as an element of circular economy, and importantly, that it brings about societal, social values.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for keeping it brief. Then I will move to my next question. I want to ask Chris to give an overall trend. How is circular economy and waste management developing across Africa? And do you see different trends in different regions? In Eastern Africa, Western Africa, Southern Africa. I would like to add this, is that if you're looking at the World Bank data, you see that Sub-Sahara region is actually one of the poor performers in waste management, with only collection rates at average of about 33%. In cities and 9% in rural areas, landfilling, mainly dump sites. Only 23% is sanitary landfilling. Recycling rates at average only about 7%. Hardly any composting, no other ways of treatment. So actually this is, I think, a bad start for circular economy, isn't it? Chris.
Herman, the statistics don't lie. I think that there are a number of good initiatives that are happening across Africa, but certainly not at the scale that's required. One of the biggest issues that we face in developing nations is not just Africa, Southeast Asia, is the lack of infrastructure in terms of looking at proper waste management. And that largely comes from understanding where we are from an LSM perspective, looking at the socioeconomic dynamics of where we're coming from. Big cities understand, if you look at the likes of Lagos in Nigeria, or even if you go to Johannesburg, the simple reality is that if you look at the haves versus the have-nots, we have a bulk of people living in the lower LSMs where incomes are low. And normally what happens is that means that they are not paying rates and taxes towards waste collection and waste management. So often what happens in African cities is that there is a lack of funds to look at appropriate systems with regards to waste management, not only collection, but also landfilling. And we have a dismal performance globally or in the continent rather, in terms of our management of those landfills as well. However, I see this as an opportunity. Yes, our rates are low. We are starting to see a paradigm shift and change in mindset. We are seeing this through a multitude of countries. There's an analysis that we did through the EU-Africa cooperation, looking at circular economy in Africa. And we are starting to see some really good signs with regards to development and alignment in terms of this paradigm shift to look at the opportunities in circular economy. But that changes depending on where you are. The opportunities are very different depending on the country that you're looking at. Largely across Africa, the biggest issue is in the waste sector. We are one of the largest contributors globally in terms of plastic waste into the environment. And it's simply because we haven't looked at the opportunity in terms of the valorization of different waste streams and the implementation and application of different technology and applications. So you talk about organics, and organics is, yes, composting is at a very, very low rate right across the continent. But we need to embrace the opportunities in terms of looking at the value chain. So how do we look at our organic wastes in terms of ethanol production, anaerobic digestion, energy, biochar production, looking at going from a low-grade compost to bioorganic fertilizers. And there are many different applications in terms of utilizing the biomass waste, which we are blessed with in Africa, obviously sort of south of the Sahara, and looking at how we can unpack those and create the connections and linkages with our international partners to basically look at the economic opportunities in those. So we are seeing that. The Continental report that was done for Africa, we've done a drill down into 8 African countries. I can share the Continental details. I'll probably put that into the chat. Really shows that we are starting to see alignment. 52 out of 54 African countries do have a focus somehow in terms of circular economy. It may not be circular economy by name. It could be looking at extended producer responsibility. It could be looking at sustainability or green procurement policies, looking at trade policies in terms of local beneficiation of products before export, rather than being a net exporter. So there are a lot of different ways that we can look at it. The opportunity is to engage, I think, with what we see as yes, there's a gap in the market, but how do we take advantage of that? And I think the future is very bright in terms of the opportunities that we're faced with.
Okay, Chris. And Kimi, can I ask your comments as well on your situation on circular economy in Kenya at the moment? In Nigeria at the moment, sorry for that.
Yeah, thank you, Herman. So I didn't mention during my introduction that I'm the Nigerian chapter lead of the African Circular Economy Network. And Chris and myself, we work closely on various circular economy initiatives. And so I would say for Nigeria, particularly Lagos, circular economy is beginning to become a buzzword. There's more advocacy for circular economy initiatives in Lagos State. And one of such is the project we currently work on in creating a circular business platform for Lagos, where multi-sectoral stakeholders have come together to decide on what is the way forward. How can we begin to design waste? How can we begin to have good just symbiosis, for that material and energy inflow amongst all necessary parties? I would say the paucity of policy to drive circular economy, of course, is well known that that's the situation in Nigeria. But good enough, we now have the national policy on solid waste, and likewise, there's a policy on plastic that came out last year. So just like Chris has also mentioned, waste management is a topical issue when it comes to circular economy, because particularly plastics, the statistics on plastics is just enormous. So circular economy is beginning to gain ground. We are trying to look at various sectors where people can plug in and begin to reap the benefits. But importantly, like I said earlier on, there has to be that social benefit, because we have largely the informal sector, and then social enterprises that actually want to do business in better ground, and let that loop be closed as it ought to be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Karin, your comments. And I got a question from Marjolein, who asked, do African companies cooperate in the area of waste management and circular economy? Do they look what happens in other countries? Is there a platform which is active?
Yeah, for instance, in Kenya, there is PETCO, which is the PET PRO, so Producer Responsibility Organization, and that you have also in South Africa. So it's not exactly the same model, because even though we are East Africa and Southern Africa and we're quite alike, there's a different context and different associations and different collaborations on the development of proper waste management structure. So there are, they do look beyond the borders. It's the same for single-use plastic ban, for instance. Countries do look across borders. Kenya has been quite on the forefront with the plastic carrier bag ban, which is just to eliminate, because we can't really manage it and it would clutter all our drainages and it would cause really a lot of health hazards at the same time, as well as environmental impact. I mean, they go hand in hand. Yes, they definitely do. And especially now, if you see that there's a policy push from the government, you see that businesses are quickly to bond as businesses, like, okay, we need to have a solution because maybe there will be a policy in place that our products will be banned and we don't want that, or we want to avoid actually losing our business. So we better transform our business into a more circular economy approach. And therefore you need everyone on board. So what you see in Kenya is that's actually quite great. So the last 5 years, people are not fighting. Obviously, some businesses want to prevent a transition because they have made a big investment in specific plastic packaging, for instance. But on the other hand, we actually see that businesses do talk with the government listens to businesses, because the private sector is the big driver in Kenya, for instance, for the implementation. There you see a lot of joint forces, multi-stakeholder platforms, and we are now in development of the Kenyan Plastic Pact, for instance, which is also in South Africa, but not yet in other African countries. There's one in development in Senegal, and we have one in the Netherlands. So yes, you definitely see progress on that. To reflect on your initial question, whether there's a little that has been collected, it's true. Through the PROs and through organizations and policies, there's more and more being collected. But the question is, and that's also what Kemi is addressing, a lot of it is still informal waste sector. And therefore, how much can you collect efficiently? And how much of that is actually not contaminated and could be recycled? So with the development of specific policies like the EPR, with the awareness being raised amongst businesses and the need for them to build and implement actually the infrastructure, you see that there's more and more conversation about how can we assure that we can get back what we need to get back, and is the informal waste sector the best? So you see organizations that are formalizing actually the informal sector, but we also see, and that is done by fixed market prices and app incentives if you can guarantee so much a week. But we also see that alternative credit systems are popping up in Kenya to see, can we not sort at household level or sort at site, and how can we incentivize that behavior? So I think, yes, there's little. On the other hand, we can design it still how we think it would be most effective and efficient. And the benefit, and the other thing is that up to now, we don't produce as much waste as we produce in Europe or in Netherlands yet. So we have a little bit of time to define the best way forward.
Okay. Nina, your image means that you want to interfere.
Yes, because we got a question in the chat. It goes as follows: in which African countries is manure already a problem or solution for soil fertility and or biogas production, also in relation to water quality? And how can we make a combination with human feces out of big cities for biogas or fertilizers?
Well, for all of you this question, let's start with Kemi.
Okay, In terms of sourcing energy from organic materials, so of course agriculture is huge. It's huge. In fact, huge business in Nigeria. Although it's not being harnessed at a scale which it should be. So for the various initiatives, so I would say, for instance, in Lagos at the food market, there has been several pilot models to harness gas from food waste, from food waste. And so, but at what scale, like I said, it's always at the pilot phase. So there are various opportunities to begin to look at biogas production in that area. Another initiative which we currently are on, with the process in the pipeline with some Finnish organizations, is trying to get renewable energy sources from palm kernel shells. And so you know that Nigeria is one of the largest, used to be one of the largest oil palm producers, and we have abundance of palm kernel shells, which we do not actually utilize those opportunities. Most of our energy is still from natural gas. And so there are various discussions ongoing to say, you know what, we have these palm kernel shells, let's begin to generate energy from it. So yes, I can't precisely give figures and statistics at the moment, but there's huge opportunity in the Nigerian market for biogas production. That's what I would say.
Okay, so going back to the question of fecal sludge and manure, animal manure, Chris, is there something happening in South Africa, maybe?
Yes, but only at a small scale. Really, we're seeing a number of different initiatives, particularly more at a large scale. We have an issue from largely, remember, most of our feedstocks are rural. So we're looking at large rural populations of sheep, goats, cattle. And generally manure is not collected, and there's a bit of a sort of a cultural hesitation to using that for a local composting or fertilizer production. But we are seeing it at a larger scale, particularly in sort of intensive agriculture, in the chicken houses, the piggeries, and in the feedlots, where the industry is starting to understand the opportunity from a biogas perspective. And then secondly, obviously, the digestate that comes from that being an application or high value application into agriculture. Not at any scale that we could really boast about. There are huge opportunities. Again, trying to take new technologies into application is less one of understanding the technology. It's more one of understanding the education of the potential user and also understanding the legislative and regulatory constraints in terms of project development. But there is a lot of work that's going on from a governmental perspective to discuss opening up these opportunities. Recently, the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environmental Affairs put out a request in terms of norms and standards around organic waste, which could include the likes of fertilizer. And that will open up the doors, hopefully, to developing systems like anaerobic digestion and biogas applications. But there's huge opportunity. And as Kemi says, one could also look at the combination of that with other materials and other organics to look at scaling up projects.
Okay, and Karin, how about the situation in Kenya?
Yeah, you see, it's still a challenge because composting, for instance, and converting that to manure and to soil enhancers, it takes a long time and it takes a lot of space. So we do see that there are collectors and recyclers currently exploring those opportunities, like for instance, Taka solution in Kenya. So that definitely takes place. We also see that there were a number of initiatives on farm level to convert their organic waste into biogas. And that was a bit of a challenge because you need to actually have a lot and you need to start collecting it. So it's not only, I think what Chris is mentioning is education and awareness, which is right, but there's also, the technology is not such a thing, but the ecosystem around it needs to be taken into consideration. Is it easy to transport organic waste? Is that actually really expensive? How are the roads designed? How can you combine? And there was an initiative where they combined and collected all the organic waste of various flower farms in the region of Naivasha together, but then you have access to an area from the back of your farm. It's not so secure. So there are all these different components that you need to take in consideration. The other thing is that, for instance, on farm level, a lot of the farms that are advanced and embrace circular economy or just started with the whole sustainability journey a while ago, their organic waste is such high value that before they wanted to become an alternative for fossil fuel, they actually feed it to the animals or the conservation they maintain at their farm. So we see that, for instance, Osarian farm, doesn't want to actually get rid of it, but they are already reusing it and converting it into fuel, sort of the last option of using materials, and they don't think that's necessary. So there's various things going on that level. Then there's also Synergy, which is trying to actually really tackle human waste, basically, and see how we can use that, as we can't really use that immediately for fertilizer. It's not so healthy. So there are various initiatives that are exploring that space. And then obviously it's also a case of policy and legislation. So with those alternative ways of dealing with waste, it's not so easy yet because it's new. So now you have to have, you're transporting waste, but you're actually not. Now you have to have a waste license, but you might not consider it waste. So there are some challenges, and that's the same for instance, sludge and on household level, for instance, wastewater treatment systems. We're still actually waiting for the right policy and legislations in that space to actually boost that. So that's
okay.
A bit.
Thank you. Thank you. We have to move on to the next topic. You already said something about EPR, extended producer responsibility. It's in South Africa and in Kenya, I think it's already more or less operational. Maybe Chris, can you explain the situation in South Africa?
I certainly wouldn't say it's operational at the moment, Herman. It's been a long journey in terms of the development of extended producer responsibility. South Africa has done a number of things in the past, as long as 12 years ago, developing specific regulations around plastic bags and around tires. These were done under what we call a Section 28 of the National Environmental Management Waste Act, which largely was a government-driven approach to managing the waste. Unfortunately, they failed rather miserably. So there was a big push over the last 5 years now to drive extended producer responsibility, specifically in three main sectors. So we're looking at electronic waste, the lighting industry, as well as paper and packaging industries. And there's been extensive engagement with industry and stakeholders. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, there was a dramatic move by the new minister to move away from a Section 28 to a Section 18 process, which is an industry-driven approach. And that obviously has given us a lot more confidence in moving forward, because we have a very robust industry application that has been working for decades on producer responsibility organizations. And we have a number of them, SA Plastics, Packaging SA, Petco, Polyco, SA Vinyls Association, Glass Recycling Association. And these have all been largely voluntary through some of the bigger producers. What is happening now is that the EPR regulations, which were only published on the 5th of May this year, So literally a couple of weeks ago. We now need to get alignment with basically widen the net. So now producers, retailers, importers now have to align themselves with a specific extended producer responsibility by November this year. And again, EPR, remember, is structured very differently in South Africa, looking at the African conditions where there's quite a big focus looking at the empowerment of the bottom of the pyramid, so particularly the informal sector. Realistically, the informal sector collects 90% of all of recycled materials that enter into the process, and that's pretty much the same across Africa. So EPR has to be very cognizant of the role of the informal sector and developing systems where we ensure that there is value in the plastic that will make it make sure that it gets picked up. The only way we're going to stop plastic leakage and the proliferation of badly managed landfill sites is to look at the polluter pays principle, drive extended producer responsibility to get those materials out of the system. But we also need to understand that we need to develop the infrastructure to be able to cope with the processing and value addition of those materials. So we've got a long way to go, but we've taken the right steps, and I'm very hopeful in terms of that.
Okay. Kemi, can you add something about the situation in Nigeria on EPR? Is it already starting? Is there a discussion going on at government level, for instance?
Yes, so, okay, I mean, it's interesting to know that eventually we got extended producer responsibility mentioned in the national policy on solid waste management, which was released last year. And likewise, EPR has been mentioned in the national policy on plastic waste. I mean, Nigeria has gone the route of anything that has to do with sustainable development, sustainability, circular economy, mainly falls within the environment space. And so largely that is controlled by the ministry, the Federal Ministry of Environment, and its enforcement agency, that's the National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency, that's NESRIA. And so those two agencies at the national level, the ministry and agencies sit on top of EPR. But Lagos State, let me let you know that Lagos State has had an EPR policy for years now, but to what extent is the implementation? And so when you look at the stakeholders that sat together to design like a model for extended producer responsibility, you had the producers, we spoke about the consumers back then, and then there's where you have the producer responsibility organizations, the collectors, the recyclers, and then of course the government itself. So in Nigeria, we have different bodies that have like tried to put themselves together depending on the sector. So you have the EPRON, that's the, they're called, apologies, they're called the electronic, I remember that, electronic producer organization of Nigeria. You have those that are into batteries, so Alliance for Responsible Battery Recycling. And you have some other ones that look at various streams. So in Nigeria, EPR mainly speaks to plastics. I mean, it's number one. Mm-hmm. You have batteries, likewise the PET bottles. That's a standalone, in its own self. And so implementation really is the challenge. Not that people don't understand what the concept of, as a producer or as a consumer, how do you keep this cycle of ensuring that there's responsible consumption and production, and then of course ensuring that that life cycle assessment is fully integrated into the system. So by and large, really, the main challenge of the EPR model is still the implementation, because at the end of the day, you have the importers, you have the distributors, and then the retailers and marketers. Are they fully aware or understand that products have to come back to them or have to pick it up? So you realize that downstream waste management, it becomes the issue of downstream waste management. And so, but graciously enough, since Lagos State is beginning to champion the EPR, hopefully, and of course, you'll find that Lagos is we all know that Lagos is the commercial nerve sector in Nigeria. And then you have organizations like FIBRA, that's the Food and Beverage Recycling Alliance, which is one of the major drivers of the extended producer responsibility. The multinationals have taken this on. So I believe in no distant future, we'll begin to see the proceeds of the act actually now, of the EPR now put in the policy, and hopefully people begin to implement.
Okay, thank you. Karin, actually you already told something about EPR in Kenya. So I want to ask you first, for the next topic, business opportunities. The audience of this session are companies active in circular economy and waste management. What would you like to tell them about business opportunities in your markets? Karin.
Yeah, I've also shared a report we created actually, where that you can read that. It's on the Africa Business Week website. So it has a bit of a funny name, but I shared it in the chat. So you can have a look at that. And that highlights all the trends around circular economy in Kenya, and as well as the opportunities. And then it's mentioning a few good practices in that space. Yes, definitely waste management is one of the opportunity areas, because the EPR is just in the beginning of being implemented, and that infrastructure needs to be put in place. Obviously, it's a bit unsure yet how policies will develop and which laws will be applicable soon on the various product groups. So just one add-on in terms of the difference maybe in other EPR schemes in other countries is that we have 19 PROs being defined. So it's for 19, they don't call it waste streams, they call it 19 product groups. So glass is separate from plastics, but plastics is one. And the current discussion that we are having is that you can only have one producer responsibility organization per product group. So that actually means that if Petco wants to become that one go-to partner on plastics, they need to go and do all plastics. So I just wanted to add that. So there is definitely market in waste and no waste and redesign space in Kenya. Then there are, we have the big four agenda is actually the agenda of the government, which is affordable housing. It's food security and access to health. And those are also in the trends of development of circular economy. So we do see that there is a space for agri-smart solutions. And that's the Netherlands is good in that. There is already a lot of farms that are being run by Dutch business owners or have a Dutch relation. But regenerative agriculture, but also smart agriculture, water saving solutions, all those kind of developments, there's definitely space. And then we have a very active Kenya is great in the digital space. So in Kenya, there's a lot of opportunities for digital applications and solutions that are run over the phone. And we see that in terms of health security, business using that, because we have Safaricom, which is an equivalent of Vodacom, but it's actually the only true player in the market. And it has the M-Pesa system, so mobile money system. And that mobile money system, currently 50% of our GDP runs over M-Pesa. So you have to imagine that our 50% of your total GDP of 47 million people is actually running over a phone. So there are huge opportunities there, and what people do is leverage on that system. So access, for instance, if you look at the space of renewable energy, there's always opportunity in Kenya, although we are quite far. Like Kenya is already for 70%, 75% based on renewable energy. We have the biggest windmill power park in Africa, actually, Lake Turkana, and there's also Dutch knowledge behind that and Dutch involvement. But there's a lot of opportunity there. You see also that, for instance, M-Kopa, which is providing households access to electricity through solar. makes use of the M-Pesa system. So the minute you don't pay, you will be disconnected from a distance. And there are many applications that work on that system. So there's a lot of opportunity in there, but also smart housing and affordable housing. And again, reusing materials, there we have to really develop, because what you see is now that, for instance, plastics and waste we can't manage will be converted into building materials, but the other way around, mining it back from used buildings that we destroy, that's not yet in place. So we demolish buildings and we do not separate building waste, and that's a big loss. And we're still building with fresh water, which is a scary fact, because the water situation is not great in Africa in general, and even Kenya needs to be very careful. So also around water, we can use a lot of innovations, avoid leakage. And again, there's always a mix between the digital space, actually not having waste, so also not on water, and looking at the qualities on innovation.
Okay, thank you, Karin. I will also like to give some opportunities for other countries, for South Africa and for Nigeria. Otherwise, they all come to Kenya, and it will be crowded there. So Chris, please. Business opportunities.
I think that there's a lot of
best practices maybe as well. Yeah.
Well, we've got a lot of good practices that are happening at the moment. You know, we talk about landfills and the problems around landfills, and we do have a number of very well-run landfills. We have a number of very well qualified and highly competent waste management companies in the country that run private landfills that are actually doing very well. We tend to find more as a problem with the government landfills. But even the waste management companies are starting to identify and understand the issues in terms of the lack of available airspace that we're seeing in our landfill sites, and the opportunity to look at the valorization of the different waste streams. So we're seeing more of that. And we're also getting directives from government. So government is looking at a number of things through something that they call Operation Pakisa for the chemicals and waste economy, which is designed looking at the different waste streams and the valorization of those in terms of economic development and upliftment. So through that, we've looked at billions and billions of dollars worth of potential investment opportunity across the different value chains. And there are certainly some things happening at a smaller scale. If we look at the applications in plastics, South Africa probably has probably the most robust plastics recycling infrastructure in Africa. It still needs to be built up and grow a little bit more. But we also want to look at more of the vertical integration, so more of the remanufacturing. We've been discussing this with Kemi in Nigeria as well, to look at the RPET market, food to food grade type systems, and looking at maximizing the value in different value chains. So we see a multitude of different things, and again, right across the waste streams. So understand municipal solid waste in South Africa is in the region of 26 to 28 million tons. And yet South Africa produces about 108 to 120 million tons of waste. So we've also got to look at the mining industry. We have to look at the issues around fly ash. There's the agricultural industry, and there's a lot of industrial wet wastes as well, where we can look at really clever chemical opportunities to look at valorizing waste streams as opposed to putting them into hazardous landfill. I don't think there are too many hazardous landfills across the rest of Africa. I think South Africa is pretty unique in terms of managing that. There's one or two across the rest of the continent. But as we said before, with the opportunity in terms of where we are realistically, we're probably talking about 10 to 11% recycling in South Africa across the board. And there are a multitude of opportunities in terms of engaging with the South African authorities. We have a number of agencies that are looking towards that. We also have a sort of across or Pan-African application. We're looking at the developments through obviously the African Circular Economy Network, but also the African Circular Economy Alliance. And we can tie that in with the African Free Trade Agreement, driving opportunities in terms of investment and collaboration with our European partners to develop projects right across the value chain. So from organics to electronic waste. I'm busy working with the World Resources Forum and the sustainable recycling industries to develop systems in e-waste in South Africa. But there are so many fantastic examples of project developments already in South Africa that need to be scaled. So it's not always just a case of looking at new technology. Sometimes it's a case of looking at the business case and the available technology. Our focus really has got to be looking at unpacking that value chain to look at skills creation and job creation across the country. That is the biggest mandate of the South African government at the moment. We're currently sitting with over 30% official unemployment. It's probably close to 50%. That's not a great place to be, which also means there's a lot of skills out there that are sitting around doing nothing. So there are good opportunities in terms of investment, and we are seeing open doors policies between the European countries and what we're doing. And I think the alignment with regards to the new Green Deal through Europe is very key with regards to understanding that Europe is also unable to look at a lot of project developments with their restrictions in terms of carbon, transport, global supply chains, etc. And that opens up opportunities to look at the resource development in Africa, and we'd like to encourage that as much as we can. Okay,
thank you, Chris. Kemi, there is already an initiative, I think, to set up a PIB on Kenya, on Nigeria. There was a closed session in this event. What are the business opportunities in Nigeria?
Right, thanks. Thank you for that. So I will let you know that Nigeria has the market. Mm-hmm. Nigeria is the market. Lagos is the market. I mean, I often say that Lagos is a virgin market. It's a market that is untapped, really, in all aspects. So think about the sector, be it in agriculture, communications, metals, pharmaceuticals, electricity, power, really. You know, it's all there. So it's just an untapped market that circular economy initiatives can bring in. That innovation, the technology, product design. You know, I mean, in recent times, the Vice Consul of the of Netherlands, Abel, Consul Affairs, Vice Consul Economic Affairs, Abel Nearing, has been ensuring that he creates that network of people, you know, organizations from Nigeria, the Dutch company, to come do business in Nigeria. So one of such is the Africa Collective Textiles, which ACN and ACT have been trying to look at circularity in the fashion industry. So we pick up end-of-life textiles and begin to get fibers from them. Of course, this discussion has gone further to the stage of having a pilot phase. Likewise now, there are various proof of concepts that we're trying to develop in various other areas and sectors. Recently, that was last month, we had a workshop on circularity in the metal industry. So you know that Nigeria, mostly we don't have aluminium from primary sources. It's all usually secondary. And that is a market that is just there. You have enormous environmental issues from that. But again, really, the value chain of metal industry in Nigeria is something that needs to be harnessed at all fronts, because it's a multi-million dollar investment. And of course, the return on investment is always there. Another area that requires attention is tires, really. I mean, companies in the Netherlands that are listening to this, tires is very huge. Nigeria has rubber, but all the manufacturing companies that used to be in Nigeria to produce tires have left. And the last one that left was Dunlop, that moved to Ghana. And it will interest you to know that Nigeria actually in 2014 contributed 2% to the total global market tire. So we purchased more than 5 billion naira, $5 billion worth of tire in Nigeria. And what happens to end-of-life tires? Nothing. It goes into our dump sites. And so you can imagine that by the time we begin to look at recycling, retreading, recombing of tires, imagine the business that comes out of that. So that's a stream that is just left there and not tapped. I've mentioned the metals. I mean, I can't emphasize power. The government in recent times have been embarking on various renewable energy initiatives, but I mean, If you look at the ranking, Nigeria, I think, is among the top 10 countries that is without electricity. So there are various circular economy initiatives that we can begin to, pump into the Nigerian economy. I've mentioned product and technology, so lean manufacturing. We see in recent times, people begin to say, you know what, people need to begin to live and live at least, if not optimally, to a fairly large extent. And so we can begin to have frugal innovations. And of course, this translates into that cyclical initiatives we keep mentioning. So for in Nigerian economy, people are tired of this talk shop. It's all advocacy and advocacy. When do we begin to actually have proper implementation and let us actually know that circular economy is not an abstract concept, but it can translate to what societal values. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we like to go to the next topic. It's the company pitches. We will deal with some of the issues which are on the chat in the Q&A. But now I would like to go to the company pitches, and I would like to invite Luc Rietveld, Frank Hoiting, and Robert Holman to switch on the camera and sound on unmute, and ask them to come up with their pitches. Luc, can you start, please?
Yes, thank you very
Please.
much. I don't have the opportunity to turn on
the camera.
Yes, I hope you can see me. Thank you, Herman. Thank you very much for being given this opportunity to present. My name is Luc Rietveld. I work for a Dutch company, AWECT. We are a spin-out of AEB Amsterdam, the public waste management company of the city of Amsterdam. And what we focus on, the country that we focus on currently in Africa is Nigeria. What we do is we develop waste to energy projects based on the high efficiency waste to energy technology that was developed in Amsterdam, and which is unique in the world, being the most efficient large scale waste incineration facility still in the world. As pointed out by Kemi, there's a lot of opportunity in Nigeria. 200 million people, a lot of waste, and most of it is currently landfilled. If you look at Lagos alone, and we've looked at this also together with the Dutch embassy and based on a study that was done by Holland Circular Hotspot and several other consultants, there's more than 16,000 tons of waste landfilled in the Lagos area on a daily basis. And Lagos is very much like the Netherlands. It's an area with a lot of water surroundings, very little space for landfilling. And we believe that this, well, everyone knows that landfills are one of the major producers of greenhouse gases, methane, etc. So what we want to do is, by bringing this advanced waste energy technology to Nigeria, to replace these landfills, and especially the open dumping of untreated waste. And in order to develop waste energy projects, there are several key items that you need. There needs to be a electricity tariff that makes the business case feasible. There must be enough waste. There needs to be an interest from the government to develop these projects. And we found that in Nigeria, all these items are apparent. And that's why we're looking at the market for waste energy. Of course, there are several issues that we're running into, especially now not being able to go there. But as you always hear, find the right partners. It's easier said than done, but thanks to a good network and the advice of the embassy, we've managed to find good local partners who are keen to get this moving in Nigeria. As Kemi already, I think, also mentioned, energy is a big problem in Nigeria. I also spoke to the embassy. There's rolling blackouts, so providing power from the waste can hopefully help accommodate some of the issues that Lagos is running into. And yeah, finally, let me see. Yeah, what really helped us being there is the contact with the embassy for now and the local partners. So we're in touch with several. What we hear, sorry, last point. What we know, what we learned from the policymakers in Nigeria is that there's an interest in waste energy, and that's really the key starting point. They're looking for alternative solutions to divert waste away from landfills. I think that's key to start projects like ours, and we managed to find that in Nigeria. That's why we're focusing there.
Okay, thank you, Luc. Now I would like to give the floor to Frank Hoiting of Lubo. Please, Frank, can you unmute and
yes,
start
I
the video?
hope everyone can hear me.
Yeah?
And see me as well, probably.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Hearing you is okay, but...
Okay. Okay, then we start. Well, first a short introduction. I'm Frank Hoiting, working for Lubo Systems in Holland, in Emmen. Lubo is part of the Bollegraf group, and we supply waste sorting systems, solutions worldwide. In Africa, we are active in Ghana, in Nigeria and Egypt. In Ghana, we are currently building the first recycling plant in Accra. What I heard in the sessions is, I'm happy to see that this circular economy is a topic in Africa, and that there's a lot of initiatives. I can notice it a little bit because I get a lot of emails, phone calls from people in Africa that want information, that want to build a system. But we also have to be very selective in our customers. It is mentioned in the cases today, infrastructure is very important. There needs to be a proper waste collection system. We need to know what the contents of the waste stream is. Then we are able to design a system that can separate the waste. Another thing that was mentioned was the mindset. When I first came to Ghana, I believe it's 5 years ago, I saw everywhere the little water bags, the little blue bags lying around, dumped on the curbside. And I saw that with every visit, I saw that improving. So the mindset is getting better. It's a slow process like everywhere, but it gets better and people notice the environment.
Okay.
Another thing that I wanted to mention is what's the business case for the owner of a recycling facility? It is very important that the government is able and willing to make money available for that purpose. We can make fabulous plans, but it's important that someone makes money with it. And I know in Ghana, it's mainly about the compost. So a lot of content in the waste is organics, and they make compost of it, and then they sell it as a fertilizer. Mm-hmm. And the government is giving them money for that. Okay. Other things, and that's mainly about doing business in Africa. Other topics are, it's not always clear who you do business with. It's a lot of times it's the government, and in between there's a small company that is, and you have to consider, who is my customer? Am I allowed from the Dutch government to do business with that party? Is it maybe on the sanction list? We did some projects in Egypt, and that was one of the time-consuming topics.
Yeah. Thank you, Frank. I would also give the floor to Robert Holman. There are quite a lot of options for you to your company is being listed, I hope, in the general on the web page of this whole event, so people can contact you. And I would give the floor to Robert Holtman now. Although he is UK, not even EU anymore, we still cherish the UK. Please, Robert, can you unmute yourself, and are you able to do?
Yes, Herman. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay, this is Rob Holman delivering his votes from the UK.
I guess.
Right, gentlemen and ladies, of course. My name is Rob Holman. I work for the organization called Circulaire. We are a company originated 3 years ago, focusing mainly on the collection and processing of PET bottles, originally in Nigeria and now across, I think it's 8 other African countries. Listening to the previous speakers, for sure there are many questions and clarifications that you must consider before you become engaged with working across Africa. But for our organization, and the organization is primarily of African executives, African management, African people, there are many things to consider. The resources are fantastic. There is a lot of very valuable waste that is being left to do nothing in these African nations, which is a resource that interests all of us. We are not philanthropists. We want to find a product that we can then convert into cash for everybody correctly across the value chain. From my experience, the biggest value in Africa is the number of incredibly talented, hardworking young people who are prepared to work with you to get these projects to success. Because I notice you're making some comments about having to work on the infrastructure and so on. Yeah, this is important, but we have in front of us what we have in front of us, and we need to use the local knowledge to make things work. From a PET bottle point of view, we started 2018. The first 6 months was very much trials and testing, evaluating logistics. I think we shipped 10 containers in 2018. 2019, we moved this up to close to 3,000 tons of bottles. Last year, in spite of the problems with COVID, we acquired our own processing operation in the UK, where we are hot washing the bottles for sheet extrusion or onward sale to people making rPET bottle to bottle. And we moved 6,000 tons of bottles from the collection locations. I am told reliably by these wonderfully optimistic young African partners from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Cameroon, from Burkina Faso, from Ivory Coast, and beginning next month from Mozambique and from Uganda, that we will commercialize 40,000 tons of bottles, mainly to the European market, but increasingly to the US market. My point is, I can only achieve this because I have some fantastic collaborators in the territories, not just Nigeria, but also the other locations that we're working with. We have local engagement with the authorities and the government who are very sympathetic to our activities. We are trying to establish ethical systems of generating income and employment. The nature of our business also allows very flexible employment for a good percentage, a good number of women and ladies across the territories, which is not necessarily a normal situation. From my position, all I would encourage you good folks from the Netherlands to do is to use the good offices of Abel and his team and the other people that are participating directly from the African face of this presentation today. Engage with these people and find out how you can get things moving. If you want more conversations with me about how we've managed to do things, I'm very, very, very open to share our activities. We have no secrets. Our objective, medium term, and I'm going to finish very quickly, what we are doing in the European and the American markets, in 4 or 5 years' time, we must be repeating this same high quality recycling activity in Africa to supply the local demand. I hope I haven't bored you too much from my point of view. But I thank you very much, everybody, especially Abel and his very patient team, for accommodating me this morning. And again, if you want any questions or you want my telephone number, I'm sure Abel and his team can facilitate this.
Yeah. Well, I hope Nena from Beuningen will give all the contact details of all the companies. And there has been quite a lot of activities in the chat, and with questions and also with answers and direct responses. So Nena, maybe I can give you the floor to see if there are some short questions which we could deal with.
Yeah, there are a few questions unanswered. I just wanted to mention that if we can't make it on time, please put your questions still in the chat. And include who it is directed to, and we'll get back to you also after the session. But for now, I still saw a question on waste to energy, and I saw that Chris wants to respond to it. It's from Sarah on if there's a technology to transform the waste to energy without feeding the machine petrol or energy. Chris, you've seen it already, I think. Do you want to answer that question?
Yes, but I'd like to put it into context as well. I think we need to understand that, again, and I'll put it into the chats, the big issue we have in Africa is not so much the technology application, but first of all, we've got to collect it and we've got to take it to a central point, and we need to understand the waste characteristics. The second thing is Africa is a pretty big place. I don't know if you know that you can fit the whole of China, America, Europe, and all into Africa. It's a pretty big place. I had some guys saying to me the other day, we've got a project in Nigeria. We'd really like you to be the local guy to drive it, but you're right next door. So I said, no, it takes me 17 hours to get there from South Africa. Waste to energy needs to be looked at again from a small scale perspective. We need to understand the economic dynamics. There's no such thing as a gate fee that we look at from the European type applications where one can get paid 50 to 100 euros a ton to put this into a system. So one needs to look at understanding, if you want to pay off the capex, the dynamics are very different in Africa. Small scale systems are there. And again, we've seen that there are opportunities. I've seen a Malaysian system called the Asher, for example, which runs in either 2.5 or 4 ton type applications. It does full incineration of all waste, even with a high moisture content, and converts that into about a 4% ash, which is inert and can then be used for land spreading or for ash block production. The opportunity is that obviously there's no input in terms of energy. They are self-running, which is ideal for African situations, but also the small scale. So put these into every little area where you can empower locals and develop electrical outputs from a microgrid perspective. Understand again that the African situation is problematic. There is Nigeria, as a prime example, has 13,500 megawatts of production capacity, but they only have 4,000 megawatts of transmission capacity. So microgrids are the way of the future in terms of circular economy, small scale, looking at microgrid applications. Africa simply cannot look at the infrastructural requirements in terms of looking at the distances for massive transmission grids, and of course the inefficiencies and the losses in those systems. Yeah. So okay, there are systems available, and we're looking at plugging those in through also tapping the heat to convert that into electricity for microgrids.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're very close to 11:15. And I think I have to make my closing remarks, but Nena is in the picture again. So, but I think I'm going, I will give these closing remarks now. And first of all, if you're interested in one of the markets we have discussed today, please contact the embassies and they will be shown on a slide. There it is already. You can also contact Corinna Abbas, Business Development Coach of RVO. You can reach her by the B2Match platform or email. Nena will put all the details in the chat. Please note that there is a possibility to get support from the Dutch ministry if you, together with a few other companies, are interested in entering the market. The instrument is called PIB, Partners International Business, and for more information it will be also shared in the chat. And in the homepage of this event, B2Match, you find kansenrapporten or market studies, quick scans, business opportunities for all the countries which have been mentioned. So you can find their documents. They were already in the chat for some companies, but you can find them at the homepage of the Africa Business Week. So thank you for your contribution and for your active participation also in the chat. And I hope it answered a few of your questions, and you've got a better picture of Africa and the opportunities there. And I hope you will be focusing on that continent because they need investments, they need money, they need expertise, which can be provided by Dutch, but also by other European countries. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you.